Franz. I'm founder and CEO of Sellics, and I'm very happy and excited today to share our newest feature, which I think is going to revolutionize the entire PPC management space. So today, I want to talk about PPC automation and the newest feature that we have developed. Maybe if you can just give me a quick sign in the chat, so you can find a chat in the lower left corner, whether you can hear me clearly, whether you can see the screen. So you should be seeing Sellics here, the Sellics logo. That would be cool. Okay, clear, plus, all right, looks good. Yes, I can see and hear you. All right, nice, cool. Yeah, so will there be a playback of this webinar? Yes, this is actually the question that I wanted to answer right now. Yes, there will be a playback. We're going to put it on our YouTube channel, and we're also going to send it around to all the signups. So everyone who signed up will get an email in the next couple of days, and then you'll have the playback also. In general, I'm not alone here. I'm here with Michael, who is the product manager at Sellics, who will help me also to answer questions. So he will be answering questions through the chat during the presentation, and then obviously, we're also going to have the time to talk about some questions at the end of the presentation again.
Yeah, hello, welcome. Thanks for being here.
All right. Yeah, there was a German version this afternoon. That's true. So today, like I said, we want to talk about PPC automation. In fact, this is the start of a new kind of tradition that we're planning to do. So we will have a regular webinar now called Amazon 360, where essentially we will cover different topics regarding Amazon. And so PPC automation, first topic that we're covering. So today it's episode number 1. And so we plan to do this every couple of weeks to have a new episode of Amazon 360 to just essentially share some knowledge about the Amazon space. But today the focus is really on campaign optimization. So typically the way that we see it is that there are 2 steps when you run sponsored product campaigns. First of all, there's the entire campaign. Their typical questions are something like, how does PPC even work? What does ACOS and all those abbreviations stand for? And also, how do I structure my campaigns? So those are all topics that we're not going to cover today. Okay, so there are things that there are some other videos of us online already. So if you have questions in this area, feel free to check out our YouTube channel. Today, what we want to talk about is everything that concerns the continuous campaign optimization. Okay. And this obviously includes adjusting bids on one side, but also adjusting keywords. So everything that happens after you've set up your campaigns and you want to optimize them on a continuous or on a more regular basis. So today it's all about PPC automation. So when we think about PPC automation, essentially what happens is you are constantly repeating the same steps, right? So you are doing 2 things. You are adjusting bids. Typically there are 3 strategies. So the first strategy is you want to increase bids for all the profitable keywords. The second strategy is you want to decrease bids for unprofitable keywords, right? Obviously, if a keyword is unprofitable, you want to lower the bid to see if it gets profitable. And third of all, you want to increase the bids for keywords that have no or very little impressions, right? So those are typically the 3 steps that you do when it comes to adjusting bids. The second thing that you do, you adjust keywords on a regular basis, and here you will either pause or set to negative those keywords that don't generate any sale, or you will also add new keywords to that are hopefully matching your product and that will generate more sales, right? But all of those activities essentially, I'd say those 5 activities here would cover probably 90–95% of all the continuous optimization that you do. Now the thing is that adjusting those bids and adjusting those keywords is really, really important, but it's also very time consuming. So it is important to constantly look at your bids because, circumstances are changing. There might be more demand, seasonality, competitors joining the game or leaving the game. So it's really important to adjust your bids, and it's also important to keep an eye on your keywords. However, it's very time consuming. So we had a survey at Sellics where we asked our users how often they go into, how often they manage their PPC campaigns. And it turns out that most of our users are adjusting them at least once per week. Most of them even more than once per week, right? So it's very time consuming to just click into all those campaigns and adjust the bids and adjust the keywords. So we thought about a way how we can simplify this entire optimization process, and how we can, save you a lot of time, and also obviously, create better results. And so one thing that we found is that all of those campaigns, all of those strategies that I just mentioned before, can essentially be broken down into if-then rule, right? So it's always if, that means that you have a certain condition that needs to be met within a certain time frame, and if those two things are met, then this will trigger an action. So it's a very simple if-then relationship. Let me just give you one example. So for instance, if we have an auto campaign, a very typical strategy would be to set search terms without sales to negative, right? So how does this translate? How does this phrase here, essentially, set search terms without sales to negative, how does it translate into an if-then relationship? Well, essentially the condition is that if you have 0 sales, the time frame in this case is 25 clicks. So if you have 0 sales after 25 clicks, you want to set those search terms to negative. That's the action. So obviously this is very easy, so we just translated this kind of strategy here into an if-then relationship. There are also other examples. So for instance, if we have a manual campaign, a strategy would be to reduce the bid for unprofitable keywords. Again, how does it translate into an if-then relationship? Well, if the ACOS is above 25%, for instance, after 25 clicks, then again, the strategy is to reduce the bid by 30%, right? So those are just 2 examples on how you can essentially translate all your strategies into if-then relationships. And so the good thing about if-then relationships is they are very, very good to automate, right? Because essentially you're constantly doing the same thing, and it just takes a lot of your a lot of time, but it's you don't need to think a lot about this, right? And this is why we have decided to automate this entire process by essentially allowing you to use if-then rules to manage and automate your PPC campaigns, right? So within Sellics, and let me just switch to Sellics right now. So I guess that most of you will know this screen here, right? So this is the Sellics screen. You have all your different features here at the top. And so now if you click on the PPC manager, you will now see a new functionality here. So you have 3 different submenus, and you have a new functionality here, which is the automate feature. So essentially, if you click on the automate feature, you will, and don't be scared. This is what it looks like once you have a few rules set up. But essentially, here in the automate feature, you will be able to set up rules that will manage your campaigns automatically. Okay. So let me just show you very quickly how this works. First, you will click here on Add New Rule Set. So you just click here, Add New Rule Set, and then you decide for whether you want to create a new rule set for manual campaigns or for automatic campaigns. Obviously, the reason that we differentiate here is that there are different actions you can take for auto campaigns and for manual campaigns. So now let me just show an example for an automatic campaign. So we create the rule here. We will need to give a set name, right? So let's just call it 001 demo, right? We would also need to give a name for the rule. So the rule will be set non-performing keywords to negative, for instance, right? And now we can create a rule that will actually set non-performing keywords to negative. So we could say if there are 0 orders, or if the orders equal 0, after, let's say, 25 clicks, then you want to move the search term to negative. Okay, that's essentially what it says. So it will automatically set them to negative exact. So it will not set them to negative broad, but it will only move them to set it negative exact, right? So if you have 0 orders after 25 clicks, move the search term to negative exact, right? So this is the rule that we've created. Now we're just going to activate this rule here by just clicking on the little play button here. And then this rule is activated now. So now this is the rule that we've just created, right? Again, this is the 001 demo rule set that contains one rule at this point. And now the only thing that is left to do is we need to link this rule to a certain set of ad groups, right? So right now you can see there are 0 active ad groups for this rule. Now all we need to do is we just click on this button here, and then we choose the ad groups that we want to apply those rules for. Okay, so it could be muslin squares, ad group number 1, so we want to apply it here. We also want to apply it here, and we also want to apply it here. And then we just click OK, and then this rule will be applied to those 3 campaigns. Right, now you can see 3 active ad groups. And so now what happens is that every day we will check all those 3 ad groups and check all the keywords, all the search terms in those 3 ad groups, and see if this rule applies to any of the search terms in those 3 ad groups, right? So if the rules, if orders is equals 0 after 25 clicks, then we will automatically move the search term to negative. So you don't have nothing to do. All you do is you set up the rules, and then the software will automatically execute the rule and make sure that the action is being taken care of. Okay, so if we find a search term that actually matches those rules, we will move those search terms to negative exact. Okay, so this I think is a very simple example. It just let me just give you another example for a manual campaign. So again, we create a new rule set this time for a manual campaign. So in this case, it's 002 demo. We're gonna give it a name, lower bid for bad ACOS. Right, so that's the name of our rule. The name of the rule just makes it easier for you to to understand what the rule is doing. So we would say that if the ACOS is above, let's say 30% after, and then again, let's say 25 clicks, we will not increase the keyword bid, but we will decrease the keyword bid. So you can see that different types of actions you can take. So you can increase the keyword bid, decrease the keyword bid, you can pause the keyword, and you can move the search terms to negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrease the keyword bid by, let's say, let's say 30%, until we reach a minimum of, let's say, 20 cents. So we don't want to go below 20 cents no matter what. So we have a minimum bid that we can set. Right? So this again is very easy. We've just created this rule, and now we have this rule. We just activate this rule by clicking here on the play button, and then we will have our rule live here. Now, typically we don't, you don't just have one rule that you want to apply to a certain campaign, but you want to have more than one rule. So we can, within one rule set, so this is a rule set 002 demo, we can create a second rule by just clicking here, add new rule. And so now in this case, we want to do the opposite, right? So here we lower the bid for bad ACOS, and here what we do is we increase bid for good ACOS, right? So now it's the opposite. If the ACOS is below 30% after 25 clicks, we want to increase the keyword bid by 30% up until a maximum bid of 250, right? So now we would have the opposite, and again we just click activate rule, and so now this rule set 002 demo is actually now consists of 2 rules, and both rules are going to be applied. So if a keyword has an ACOS of more than 30%, we will lower the bid. If we have an ACOS above, below 30%, we will increase the bid. Okay, so here it shouldn't be, obviously, it should be 23%, right? So we're just going to change it here again. Sorry, 30%, and then this is good, right? Another rule that we could take is we could say, for instance, increase bid for low impressions. So this would be a keyword where it might be a keyword with a very high volume, a lot of demand, but you might just not bid enough to get enough to get enough from this demand. So here you could say, if you have less than, let's say, 1,000 impressions after, let's say, 7 days, so you don't just say clicks, but you say 7 days. So if you have less than 1,000 impressions after 7 days, you want to increase the keyword bid again by 30% up to a maximum of 2.50. So here it is really to make sure that, you know, you're not forgetting about an important keyword. So now, as you can see, now we have a third rule live here in this rule set. Okay. And now again, so I'd say this is a very comprehensive set of rules. So now once the rules are all defined, again, we just choose the ad groups that we want to activate those rules for. You can see here, you know, there are already some rules applied to this ad group here. So we're just going to pass along this ad group here. But we want to activate it for another ad group. So again, we just select the ad group that we want to activate those rules for, click OK, and then those rules will be applied. Okay, so that's essentially how the rules work. Let me just check some questions. Let me see if there are some questions coming. So Nicole was asking, are you guys integrating suggestions? Like if an auto campaign has as well performing word, will there be a way we can move it out to a manual campaign or see it suggested? So yes, we do have possibility to move keywords between campaigns, but this will only be able here in the Optimize tab, where you can do this manually. So you just select the keywords and you select the campaigns you want to move them to, and then it's a thing of one click, and then keywords or search terms will be moved. However, there are no rules at this point how you can actually create those, how you can move those keywords automatically. Okay, maybe if we have time at the end, I will also show you the Optimize tab where how you can move those keywords here. So another question is, what time frame does the tool calculate with? So I think the main question is, if you activate a rule, will it also take questions or data into account that have happened in the past? And the answer is yes. So typically we will go back, from the moment you set the rule to live, we will look back for the past 30 days and see if there are any rules that apply, if we take into account the last 30 days, and then we will only consider the data going forward. So it always applies for the last 30 days. That being said, we always exclude the past 3 days. So the most recent 3 days are excluded from all rules. Because as you know, there's always a delay between when the click happens and when the sale actually gets attributed to this click. So on Amazon, it's typically 7 days. We made some analysis and we found that 90 to 95% of all the sales are happening within the first 3 days, which is why we've decided to, to not take into account the first 3 days, but only the last 3 days, but only all the other days. Okay. Can you share a set of preferred rules? Great questions. We're going to come to this later. Ian asks, how about moving an auto search term to a manual exact group and increase bid by 20%? So again, this is not possible. So it's not possible to automatically to set rules for moving keywords between campaigns. We are working on some functionality to add this as well. But at this point, really what you can do is you can increase the keyword bid, you can decrease the keyword bid, and you can move search terms to negative and keywords to negative and pause keywords. Those are the 4 actions that you can take. And then another question that was asked here in the chat is, what about rule priorities? So at this point, I'm just going to let Michael answer the question here because he knows all the details.
Yeah, so we're aware that priorities can be very helpful in some circumstances. Right now, the way the system works is that it does exactly what you tell it to, which means that if you set up 3 different rules that all match the condition, this means that all 3 rules will trigger will trigger an action actually. So you can take advantage of this, for example, by having multiple rules set up for different ACOS thresholds, so that if you have a very bad ACOS, then actually you will not decrease the bid once, but you will actually decrease it twice or 3 times. We're thinking about adding a priority system for the future, but this is also based on the feedback that we get from you guys, if it's actually something that you would need.
All right. So there are actually a few questions coming, something like, is there a way you can see the current acres next to the target acres? You know what, so typically I would move back into the presentation now, but let me just show you the optimize tab here, because I feel that some of you guys don't have a Sellics account yet, so you probably don't know this this section here. So if you click the optimize tab, essentially what happens is you will have all your campaigns listed here. So let me just choose another time frame, and there exactly. So there we go. So we have all of our campaigns, and here you can see for the ACOS, for instance, we automatically show you the current ACOS, and we also automatically show you the break-even ACOS, right? So here in Sellics, you have the profit functionality, the profit dashboard, and so we will automatically take the profits, the profit margin, and based on those profit margins, we will automatically calculate the break-even ACOS for you, and you'll be able to essentially see the break-even ACOS and also the current ACOS. Just as well, you also see the exact profit you're making. So this is in British pounds, right? Because this is a British demo account, but you'll also be able to do this for US dollars. So you will see exactly how much profit you're making in each campaign, right? So that's a feature, because there were some questions coming. And then another functionality that is quite handy is actually, I'm going to show you how you can move campaigns from an auto into a manual campaign. So here you can see this is an auto campaign indicated by this little icon here. So if we just click on this auto campaign, we will get onto the ad group level. So again, if we click on the ad group, we will get onto the search keywords. Now this is an auto campaign, so there are no keywords, there are only search terms. So all you need to do is you just click here at the top on search terms, and then you will get a list of search terms, right? And now so those are all the search terms in your auto campaign. And by the way, we will pull all this data automatically for you. So you connect your Seller Central account, and we will populate this data on a daily basis. So there's no need to do any exports or so. And so now you can just filter those search terms. So let's say you want to see only search terms that generated at least one sale, for instance, right? So you just enter one here. Or I don't know exactly. Yeah, okay, that seems to be. There we go. So you just enter one order here, and then automatically it will show you all the search terms that have one order. So in this example, there are no search terms, but you could, very easily just filter by, whatever metric you want, and then you just choose the search terms that you want to move. So let's say you want to move those 3 search terms here. So you just select those 3 search terms, click on action, and then set add to keyword. And then you will automatically be able to move the 3 keywords or search terms that you've just selected. Just choose the ad group that you want to move them to. So we will automatically suggest the corresponding manual campaign. So you just select the manual campaign, click on add keywords, and then those 3 search terms will be moved from your auto campaign into the manual campaign. Okay. So those are just a few features that I wanted to show you here. Again, the focus today is on the Automate tab here at the top, where you can essentially set up the rules that will then manage your campaigns automatically. All right, cool. So let me just jump back into the presentation and give you some general guidance about how to set those rules, because I think the idea how those rules work is actually fairly straightforward. I guess what most of you people will ask yourselves is how do you set those limits? How many clicks should you wait? What's actually a good ACOS? What's a bad ACOS? And so on. So let me just give you some guidance here about how to set those parameters. So how do you set the right limits, right? That's the question. So if we think about our rules again, typically the first question is, when it comes to the condition, what ACOS limits should I use? So what's a good ACOS? What's a bad ACOS? And so unfortunately there is no general answer. I tell you that 20 is a good ACOS and 30 is a bad ACOS. This is not true. It really depends. Every product has different ACOS boundaries in some way. Okay, so let me just show you how you can calculate actually what is a good ACOS for you and what's a bad ACOS. So let's assume that this is a typical product, right? A typical product you're selling. So you have FBA fees, you have Amazon fees, you have unit costs, and then you also have some shipping costs, right? And so if you deduct all of those costs from your product, you will have a profit margin before PPC of 20%. Okay, so this could be a very typical product, and you can just you have the 20% profit margin. Now, if you do have a 20% profit margin before PPC, this means that your break-even ACOS, okay, so the ACOS at which you don't lose money anymore is 20%, okay? So if your ACOS is below 20%, you don't lose any money anymore because you have a margin of 20%. So obviously, if you spend less than 20% on sponsored products, you won't incur any losses, okay? So that's the first metric that you should calculate. You know, what's your break-even ACOS for each product? And then the second ACOS that you should have in mind is kind of the target ACOS, okay? So starting from the break-even ACOS, if you do have a certain margin that you want to achieve after sponsored products, right? So let's assume that you want to get at least a 5% profit margin even after PPC spend. This would mean that your target ACOS, okay, is 15%. So that means that if your ACOS, your actual ACOS is below the 15%, you will actually achieve your 5% or at least your 5% net margin after sponsored products. Okay, so that's I think a fairly simple way how you can come up with some limits. So the question what ACOS you actually set in your rules largely depends on on those numbers here, and it depends on your strategy. So some sellers say, I want to make a profit with my sponsored products campaigns, and I want to make at least a 5% net profit margin after sponsored products. This is why this seller would use the target ACOS, right, of 15%. So the rules that he would set would be something like, if the ACOS is above 15%, lower the bid by 30%, for instance, right? Now the other sellers that that want to increase sales velocity, and they just want to make sure that they don't lose money, but other than that they don't want to make money, they just want to increase as many units as possible. So those sellers would probably use the break-even ACOS as limit for their rules, because that's essentially the threshold where you're not losing any money anymore. Okay, so it really depends on your strategy and also your product. The cost breakdown essentially for your product, and depending on this, you will actually set your rules or your conditions, right? So next, if you have a certain time frame, the next question typically is, what's a good time frame? I.e., how long should I wait before I adjust my bids or my keywords? This is a very, very common question. Personally, I think it's the most complex and most complicated question. Quite intriguing to think about this. We have a lot of arguments internally about this as well. So again, this is very hard to give a rule of thumb. So you cannot say wait for 2 weeks or wait for 100 clicks. Again, it really depends on a product, and again, it also depends on your strategy. But I want to give you at least some some boundaries. So I think the minimum that you should wait before you set a keyword to negative or before you pause a keyword is 100 divided by your organic conversion rate, or let's just say conversion rate. I think organic is a bit confusing here. So it's 100 divided by conversion rate. So if you have a conversion rate of 5, you would calculate 100 divided by 5 equals 20. That means you would wait at least 20 clicks if you have an organic conversion rate of 5. Now, why is that? Why should you use this formula here? Essentially, what this formula says is you are giving the keyword the chance to perform on average, essentially, right? So if you have a conversion rate of 5%, it means that on average you will need 20 clicks to generate 1 sale. Okay, and that's what an organic conversion rate of 5% means. You need 20 clicks to generate 1 sale. Now, let's say you pause a keyword after 10 clicks because it hasn't generated any sale, then this would be premature, because on average you need 20 clicks, so why should you already pause it after 10 clicks only, right? So the thing really is that we suggest to wait at least you know, the average numbers of clicks that you would need to generate a sale, and this is the way how to calculate it. So it's 100 divided by your conversion rate. Okay. Now the maximum, kind of the upper limit that you should wait is product margin times 2 divided by the average CPC in this campaign. So product margin times 2, and you know, we thought a lot about you know, how to set those upper limits here. I think, you know, and you could argue here. So for the minimum, I think this is a very good indication. I think the maximum is really kind of the most aggressive kind of strategy that you could have, because essentially what it says here is you would be willing to invest twice the profit margin before you set a keyword to negative, or before you start changing the bids. So twice the product margin to find out whether one keyword is performing can get very expensive if you have hundreds and hundreds of keywords, right? Because you're really investing a lot of money. So I would, you know, my suggestion would be to go somewhere close to here. I would go a bit higher. So, you know, if the formula gives me 20, I would probably go to 25. You know, to give a, you know, some limit for some room to maneuver, some room for mistakes, right? But I would probably go something, you know, the minimum plus a few clicks. This one here is very, 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 very aggressive. So this is only for those who have deep pockets and who are really aggressive on thing, right? So so that's typically the next question, and you know, I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are. So if anyone has some ideas, you know, how to set those limits, I'm very open for ideas, because again, I think this is the most complex question at this time when it comes to sponsored products. You know, how long do you wait before you change, right? And so finally, the last part where people typically have questions is for the action part. You know, by how much shall I actually adjust my bids? You know, and so the answer we give is 30%. Why 30%? Well, 30% is low enough to not, you know, jump to certain, you know, between some bids. So let's assume you have a bid of 10 cents, and then you increase it to $1. So you go from 10 cents to $1. Then, you know, 10 cents might be too low, $1 is too high. So you use the perfect bid, which is somewhere in between. So what we suggest is that, you know, you gradually approach the perfect bid by not jumping too much, you know, by not going by 10x, but only by 30%, for instance. On the other side, 30% is also, you know, we feel that it's high enough. If you, let's say, increase the bid only by 10%, let's assume you start at 20 cents, you increase it by 10%, then you would go from 20 to 22, from 22 to 24, 24 to 27 maybe. And this is, you know, will take you quite some time to actually move the bids in a significant way. So I think, you know, 30% is a good rule of thumb. Okay, so that's just some general guidance about how to find those parameters. Finally, what I want to do, I would just want to give you some best practice rules for first for order campaigns, right? So the thing, if we think about all the different activities, the thing is that, you know, most of those activities cannot be executed for automatic campaigns. So you cannot set, you cannot decrease bids, you cannot increase bids. The only thing essentially that you can do is you can pause and set keywords to negative. That's the only strategy essentially that you have in your order campaigns. Now, one rule of thumb that that you could use is, if you have 0 sales after 25 clicks, set search term to negative, right? So why 25 clicks? Well, 25 clicks essentially, if you follow the formula that I just gave you before, translates to a conversion, an average conversion rate of 4%. Now, most products on Amazon have a conversion rate of above 4%. So, you know, 25 should be a threshold that is aggressive enough for most of sellers, but at the same time also, you know, defensive enough not to lose too much money, right? So I really think that this is a very good set of rules. And by the way, I also think that this is one of the most important rules, because, you know, I feel that the community, you know, the seller community is discussing very heavily how you adjust your bids and how you can find new keywords. but I feel that, you know, very few people talk about how they can set, you know, when to set their keywords to negative. But you know, if I look at many accounts, and this is really what's taking the money away, right? This is really what makes the overall account unprofitable, because you have so many keywords that are just, you know, draining money. So, you know, it's really about, you know, reducing the loss here, stopping the bleeding from those automatic campaigns, right? So I think this is a very good rule of thumb to get started, right? Now, when it comes to menu accounts, again, I also want to give you some ideas. So obviously, the first and also very important strategy is to increase your bids if you have a profitable keyword. And then again, you know, the general rule of thumb would be, you know, if you have an ACoS of less than 25%, after one sale, increase the bid by 30%. I think, again, this is a rule that will actually make sense for probably most of the sellers out there. Actually, you could probably even go higher. You can go to 30 to 35%. Really depends on the market also. If you're in the US, probably you want to be a bit more aggressive and go to 30 and 35 because it's more competitive there. If you're in Europe or in India, then 25%, I guess, is enough. So, but again, so, you know, the ACoS of 25%, and then one sale, obviously, you know, so that after each sale, we will automatically check whether this sale was profitable or not. If it was profitable, we're just going to increase the bid by 30%. So again, I think that this is a rule that can be applied to most of you guys. Same goes that if we have unprofitable keywords, so if the ACoS is above 25% after 20 clicks, again, you want to decrease the bid by 30%. Same logic here. I think that 25% is a threshold that actually makes sense for most. The same goes with the 20 clicks. Again, I think that this is a good rule of thumb. Finally, we also have the keywords with no impressions. So typically, you know, if you have less than 100 impressions after 7 days, I will definitely increase the bid by 30%. So again, I think that this is a rule that could be applied to 99.9% of all sellers. In fact, you could even be more aggressive and say, like, if there are less than 1,000 impressions after 7 days, you might not want to increase the bid by 30%, right? And finally, again, you know, we have the same situation that we have also in the auto campaign. So we want to pause keywords that don't generate any sale. So if a keyword has not generated sales after 50 clicks, then make sure to pause the keyword. Again, I think that 50 clicks is a very reasonable number. This will actually assume a conversion rate of 2%. So if you have a conversion rate of 2% or lower, then I think that, you know, it's quite fair to pause the keyword at this time, right? So combine all of this, essentially, I think a good set of rules for many sellers would probably be like this, right? If you have less than 1,000 impressions, you want to increase the bid. If the ACoS is below 25%, you want to increase the bid. If the ACoS is above 25%, you want to decrease the bid. And if the sales are 0 after 50 clicks, you want to pause the keyword, right? So that's essentially the set of rules that we are suggesting. So let me just check if there are any further questions. Just a very quick heads up. If some of you don't use Sellics at this point, feel free to go to sellics.com and start our 14-day free trial. Obviously, you will be able to test all the automation features, but also all the other functionalities that we have here in Sellics. Okay, so yeah, let me just see if there are any questions. Yes, great question from Alan. Is there a log of all changes kept? And yes, there is. So if we go back here into the Sellics tool, and I saw a question also, someone was having difficulties to find the automation feature. So again, just click here on PPC Manager. And then you click on automate, and you will end up here in this view here. Now the question was, is there an action log that tracks all the changes? Yes, so you have your set of rules here, and then you have the action log right next to it. And the action log will automatically document all the changes that we've made, right? Or well, that the rules have made, right? So you have campaigns, ad groups, and keywords. So we show you exactly for here the keyword toddler carrier, that those were the numbers when the rule was triggered. And that's the rule that has been triggered, right? So the rule was it's profitable after one order. there's been one order. The ACOS for this order has been 11.9%. This is why the bid has been increased from 50 cents to 65 cents. Okay, and this happened today, November 14th, right? And so all the changes will automatically get documented for you. So I hope that this is yeah, well, this is what you were hoping for, Ellen. Next question: do you suggest to continue with a high ACOS, e.g., 130%, if the word is the primary keyword for a product? Well, this is a good question. I think, you know, it really, again, it really depends on your strategy. If this is your only product and you're really depending on this product and you want to make sure that you actually you know, and you kind of depending on this product to sell, then probably yes, you would need to invest the money to go into it. Generally, I'm not a big fan of running unprofitable campaigns. I think you know, Sellics is very international, so we have a user base, you know, across Europe, across the US, but also across some Asian countries. So it is, you know, what we see is that in the US in particular, you know, there seems to be a very strong tendency to accept unprofitable campaigns. So people are bidding very aggressively, and the result essentially is that, you know, PPC gets unprofitable for everyone. So if you have a few very aggressive sellers that are being and willing to take an ACOS of, let's say, 200%, this will force all the other sellers to also bid more and more and more, and it's kind of a vicious circle that drives up CPCs for everyone without increasing the value for people, right? So in general, I'm reluctant to you know, to accept unprofitable campaigns. I do understand that, you know, the strategy is to, you know, increase your sales, and this by hoping to increase your organic rankings. We are seeing, our gut feeling is that the positive impact from PPC sales on your organic rankings is not as significant anymore as it used to be in the past, right? We don't have any data to prove this. We're working on some experiments to, you know, to have some data on the true impact of PPC sales on your organic sales, but we kind of feel that this impact is decreasing, and if this impact is decreasing, there's also no point in really going into negative, right? So this is you know, what I would suggest. Obviously, you know, if your life depends on this product success, and this product needs to be you know, you need to sell this product at whatever cost, then obviously yes, I would continue. All right, so other questions? No more. Does Sellics have an email campaign manager? I guess you're referring to review email or asking for reviews. So no, we don't. Actually, Sellics has a ton of features. As you can see here at the top, you know, we have rankings, reviews, a spy, inventory feature, profit dashboard. You know, we have a ton of features, but the only feature that we don't have is the email follow-up feature. We feel there are a ton of tools out there that offer this, and so, you know, instead of you know, kind of rebuilding the wheel that has already been invented, we rather focus on features like this here, where we can really, you know, innovate and create some new value. That is very, you know, that we feel is very intriguing and very, you know, I mean, those rules, you know, essentially, if you, the big change is that instead of logging into your rules, into your PPC manager every day or every week, with the rules, all you need to do is you set up the rules once, and then we will take care of adjusting the campaigns every day, right? So it's just as, instead of spending a few hours a day adjusting your campaigns, you set up the rules once, and then you can go, you know, take care of other part of your business, or just have more spare time with your family, or whatever it is that you want to spend your time with, and we take care of the heavy lifting of adjusting the bids, right? Yeah. Go scuba diving. Yes, Mo is suggesting to go scuba diving. I think going scuba diving is always a great idea. So this is a good suggestion. Probably not in Europe; it's a bit cold, but yeah, in some places there are good places to scuba dive. Okay, can you apply a rule to a specific campaign? Yes, definitely. So you can, again, so you create a set of rules, and then you can choose which campaigns you want to apply the rules for. So you create the rules here, and then you click activate add groups or active add groups, and then you can just choose the ones that you want to have those rules for. Okay, so you can choose one, you can choose all of your campaigns, you can choose half of your campaigns, however you want. Okay, so is there anything we should be aware of with respect to seasonal items? So the only thing with seasonal items is that if you have a seasonal item but the keyword is not seasonal, this could be something that you should be aware of. So let's assume that you're selling a blanket. It could be a very light blanket. So let's say a blanket for summertime, but your main keyword is blanket. So if someone is searching for a blanket in the summertime, he will be looking for a summertime blanket, right? So a very thin blanket. If someone is searching for blanket in winter, he is probably looking for a thicker blanket, right? For the winter season. So the same keyword blanket in summer means a thin blanket, and in winter means a thick blanket, right? So this means that if you're bidding on blanket and it's summertime, then you should bid a lot. If you're bidding on blanket and it's wintertime and you have a summer blanket, then you should probably bid less, right? And so the way you can kind of reflect this here in your rules is by essentially following the rules that we have here, right? So naturally in wintertime your acres will go up because obviously the conversion rate will drop. So if you have a rule like this, so if the ACOS is above 30% after 25 clicks, decrease the keyword bid. Over the winter time, we will gradually decrease the keyword bid. And if you have the counter rule like this, in the summertime, we will start increasing the keyword bid. So this is something I think you should take into account when it comes to seasonal items. So Michael is asking, will you be accounting for expenses such as FBA, storage fees, and disposal fees in the near future? And if so, how do you deal with expenses that don't occur per se, but from time to time? Yes, I mean we do in the profit dashboard. I mean this is now another feature, but the profit dashboard is exactly taking all those functionalities into account. So the I'm sorry about this, Michael. I misunderstood the question. Are we going to? Okay, so it's like general SG&A. Okay, so general expensive. So at this point we don't have it. We have a redesign of the profit dashboard in the pipeline, which is going to be called Profit 2.0, and there's going to be part of it that you'll be able to actually add any sort of general expensive, rents for your offices or salaries or whatever it is, and then those costs will be attributed equally across all products. Okay. So how do you integrate this into your account? So Mitch is asking, so this is already live into your account. You can just go into your Sellics account and then click on PPC and click on automate, and the rules will be there for you. It's live for everyone. Are these adjustments applied once per day, every day? Yes. So these adjustments, I mean, the rules are checked every day, once per day, if the rules match, and if they do, we will also apply we will also make those adjustments, right? So we will check every day. There's new data coming in from Amazon. With the new data, we will check if, given the new data, the rules apply. If they do apply, we will also trigger the rule and execute the adjustment. What about frequent price changes? Alison is asking. I suppose that's noise that can set off your rule set. Yes, I mean, so in general, the entire environment at Amazon or on Amazon is quite dynamic. So there are constantly new products coming up, reviews are and ratings are changing regularly, prices are changing, new competitors coming up. So there's a lot going on, and this obviously is a certain set, level of noise that will always, kind of that can have an impact on your performance, or that changes the circumstances in which you're active, right? So the question is, does this set off your rule set? And I don't think that it's setting off your rule set, right? I think the rules still apply. It's just that obviously if you have a more intense competition, then you're for the same ACOS, or for the same bid, you probably get less impressions and less clicks if you have some very aggressive competitors, right? So I think, but essentially, yes, it's unavoidable. You cannot eliminate all the external factors that are on Amazon, right? Is there a way to see profits for parent products, not just for child products? Yes, in Profit 2.0, this will be possible. At this point, it's not. I try this feature now. However, I can operate the action in automate rule. The different action window of rule, the different actions window of the rules don't open. So Kat, if you have some issues in general, if anyone has any problem, always use our chat, which you can find here in the lower right corner. So feel free to start a new conversation and just ask us. We have Tessid, we have David, we have Lee. We have Diana also, so just feel free to reach out to us through the chat, and we will take care of your issues. Beware that this is still in beta, right? So there might be some smaller hiccups. We've done a very extensive closed beta period to make sure that the rules are actually applied correctly. So there's no issue there, but it might be that's on on the design side there are some smaller issues. So there's a last question from Ryan. With respect to keyword volume, what time frame is that volume calculated from? For instance, seasonal holiday keywords seem lower than they will likely be now. I'm not exactly sure which keyword volume you're referring to, probably Sonar. Ryan, if you could just elaborate which... Oh, the threshold. Oh, yeah, Sonar. Yeah, so Sonar is updated on a regular basis. Sonar is updated every... on average, the goal is to update them every 6 to 8 weeks. It could be that for some keywords, we're a bit behind there right now, but so typically it's updated every 6 to 8 weeks. All right, so let me just see if there's some further questions. I see one person is typing, so feel free to go ahead with some last questions. Is there replay or slides? Yes. So again, so there will be a replay. We will send out the replay to all of you by email in the next couple of days. So we need to do some minor editing, and then we will send it out to you guys. And it will also be available on our YouTube channel. So let me just post the our YouTube account. So you can just go to youtube.com and enter Sellics, and then you will have our channel. Feel free to subscribe, because the advantage if you subscribe is you will automatically get an update for all the new videos. And as I said at the beginning, we are doing this Amazon 360 webinar series, where this was the first episode. So you can expect more of this coming in in the next couple of months and years also. All right. Looks like there are no more questions. In this case, I want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that you have that you took the last 50 minutes or so, almost an hour, to share this time with us. I hope that you have a good understanding now of how the rules work. Feel free to try them out. They are available for all Sellics accounts by now. You can, if you don't have a Sellics account, feel free to sign up on our website, and then you'll be able to sign up for a free trial. Also, free trials will have access to the rules, so it's really available to everyone. So that's it. That's it from our side. Thank you very much, guys, and well, have a good day, a good week, and for those people in the US, obviously also a good Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Thanksgiving coming up. Very exciting time. So enjoy this time of the year, and talk to you soon. See ya.